In this episode, we're going to dive into how to close more high-ticket sales calls, because the smallest increase in percentage in how many people you're able to actually close on a sales call can have a massive revenue impact with just the same amount of leads. So you're going to want to get your notebook and stick around. If you want to build a legitimate, profitable online business without shiny objects, without the hypey gimmicks, and without the stress and overwhelm, if you want to make more money without having to be present online all day, every day, pumping out content that nobody sees and hustling DMs to generate leads and sales, then this is the place for you. Welcome to the Digital Trailblazer Podcast, your online business university, where you'll learn how ordinary people start from ground zero with no influence, no email list or audience to sell to, and no business or marketing experience, and go from working 9-to-5 jobs to building successful 6- and 7-figure online businesses and all the steps in between. Learn the strategies that worked and what didn't. Learn the mistakes that they made and how to avoid them, and then learn their plans for scaling their businesses and taking things to the next level. All so that you can build your business faster and easier and make more money without sacrificing the things that are important to you in your life. I'm your host, Leah Ray Getz, and with me is my husband, Todd. Now let's get to it with today's guest. Hey, Digital Trailblazers. We are really excited to have this conversation. I'm super excited specifically to have this conversation about how to help you close more sales calls. I talk to a lot of people, and there's a lot of challenges that people might not even know they're having when it comes to sales. I love sales. I enjoy it. I'm kind of really good at it. And I want to share with you guys some really good tips to help you just help more people. And before we even get into all of the goodness that we're going to go into today, I just want to lay out a little groundwork here for you and a little bit of a mindset shift, because I know, like, I was a nurse. I came at this, and I still come at this from a heart of service, wanting to help people. And I struggled to close at the beginning of our journey. Like, I was really bad, like really, really bad. And I hired a closer. I hired a coach to help me how to close. And he said something that changed my mindset forever around this. He said, "Do you believe in what you're selling?" And I was like, "Absolutely. This stuff is amazing. It's going to change your life. It changed our lives, all this kind of stuff." I was okay. So it's good for them, right? And it's going to help them? Absolutely. Okay. So when you fail to close them, you're failing them. You're not failing you. You're failing them. And for me, that was a huge light bulb moment and allowed me to see that my head game that I was, I don't want to, challenge, or I don't want to say anything there, do anything that might make people feel like I'm selling, or just this weirdness that I had around sales. That was all about me. And I was not serving people when I had that. So shifting your mindset, making it about them, and really knowing that you're going to help them and make a positive impact for them is everything. And so that you can actually implement all of these cool things that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah. And I think the important thing here is that, these tips are especially going to be helpful when you're really starting to get into marketing to a cold market. Because a lot of times we'll talk to people who they're getting most of their leads from referrals and from networking. And typically when we talk to people who are building their business like this, what they typically say as far as what their close rate is and how they close people on calls is they have this mentality of, oh yeah, if I can just get into a conversation with somebody, I close them. Like, I got a 90%, almost 100% close rate. And as long as I can get into a discussion with them, I'll close them. And they don't really have a script that they're working off of. They don't really have methodology. And the thing is that at that point, what's closing the sale is your relationship, right? It's not your marketing. It's not your sales ability. It's your relationship. And so often what happens is that when people start scaling their business and start bringing in more cold traffic into their business, and then they finally get on a sales call with somebody who didn't come from a referral or who didn't come through a networking event or something, they have incredible difficulty closing those people. And so what we're going to go through today, number one, is not only is it going to help you to close those cold leads so that they actually, you can actually build your business and scale it further, but it's also going to make your other sales calls much more efficient and much more profitable and much more to the point, where you're not having to lower your price or bend over backwards or have several follow-ups in order to close a call that came in through networking or through referrals.
Yep, absolutely. So the first thing that is really kind of foundational level to a sales call is what some people will call posture, or, that's how I was trained. It was called posture at the time. What sits better with me probably now is leadership, leading through calls. So a problem that I had back when I started doing calls is I kind of had the voice of like when I was calling my grandma, right? And I was like, oh, how's it going? And I was being all nice and friendly. And I was in this upper range of my vocal tonality or whatever, and kind of bubbly and kind of just trying to be nice, right? That is not a postured voice in any sense of the word. That's not a voice that leads people, that inspires people to follow them. What I started to understand is, so I used to be a nurse. I had to do education for patients who were going home after they had had a heart attack, then they had open heart surgery, and now we were sending them home afterwards. And so before we could discharge them, we had to go through the instructions. And, a lot of them smoked, or they ate really crappy, or they didn't get exercise. And I had to get my nurse voice on and say, hey, if you don't quit smoking, you're going to be dead or back here in a month. And you have to stop now. Right? That tonality and just that confidence, right? That was my nurse voice. And I started to understand that in sales and in business, I got to get into that nurse voice space. I can't be in the high grandma space. I need to be in the nurse voice space. And I've talked to a lot of people, like one person was a teacher, another person was a principal. They're like, oh man, that's my principal voice. So that's my teacher voice. And so this one might be hard to comprehend. It's something you do have to practice. And this is something that really helps if you record your calls and listen to them afterwards, because it's hard to necessarily catch these things when you're doing it live, you catch yourself doing it. But when you listen to the recordings afterwards, you start to understand that didn't sound like a leader. that didn't sound like a leader. And this is something that I work with our team on as well, is that when you're leading someone, your inflection of your voice does not go up at the end of a sentence. So someone who's really uncertain and is not stepping into their leadership, they're gonna, would you like to? Could this be good for you? Do you see how this is working? And they're going up at the end of their phrases instead of going downward. Sound good? That's exactly how I say it when I'm talking. Like if I'm saying, something in a sales type of situation, if I'm in my leadership, I'm not going to say sounds good. I'm going to say sounds good. Sounds good, right? And I'm going downward and I'm leading because I'm confident. And when you have that level of confidence and you have your voice in that leadership mode, people want to follow. So this is something that is a skill. It's something that takes just a ton of practice, but I encourage you to start listening to this in your own calls and just working on it. And the more you work on it, the better you're going to get.
And this is one thing that it seems like a small thing, but it is huge. That level of certainty. This is a subconscious thing that's happening, right? It's highly psychological. But if you are coming across as uncertain about your program or the ability of your program to help somebody, the analogy we often use is like with a lottery ticket. If you've got a lottery that you have a 1 in a billion chance to win, how much do you think people are going to be willing to pay for that lottery ticket, right? It might be $1 or $2, if that. Most people aren't even going to play. But if you increase the certainty of winning, right, a certainty of achieving that result, let's say now that the chances of winning that lottery are 1 in 1,000 of winning a $100 million jackpot. Now, how much do you think people are going to be willing to pay for that ticket? And how many people do you think are going to play? Now you're going to have millions upon millions of people who've never played before. When they see that level of certainty that they could win, yeah, they're investing and they're going to be willing to pay a lot more than $1 or $2. Now they're paying hundreds or thousands of dollars per ticket. That's what increasing the level of certainty does. And so psychologically, when you're presenting your, when you're on a sales call and you're presenting a solution to a potential client, you need to have that certainty. You need to instill that certainty into that person, because when they have certainty that they can achieve a result, it increases your chances of getting that client and making that sale so much higher.
And I just want to put this out here too, that I don't believe in hard selling. Like, I don't believe in pushing someone to do something that they don't actually want to do. What we've seen work beautifully for ourselves, for our clients, is just really coming from a place of leadership, standing in your leadership, and really trying to serve that person the best possible and having the confidence in what you do to do so. So I know there's people that have better close rates than me. I don't close people sometimes. I don't want to push people to join. If you find yourself having to really hard close somebody and really work them over to get them to close, those are typically not going to be, number one, very good clients, where they're going to have some sort of resentment, or it's not going to be a good situation. They're the ones that might complain, the one might want to refund or do a chargeback or do something else. And so when we're talking about closing, I'm not saying like shoving it down their throat, right? I don't advise that, and I don't think that's a good way to go, but it's really stepping into leadership and learning just the skills to maximize the amount of people who are crossing the finish line who actually want to in the first place.
And the other thing I would say is that if you find, like you were saying, Leah, if you find that you're making too many concessions, if you're making too many compromises, right? Can I try this out for free first? Could I join for free, and then after I get the result, then I pay you? Could I, instead of 6 months, can I just join for 3 months at half the price? The more and more of those compromises you make, the less and less postured you are, and the more the less of a leadership position you're going to be in. The more the client is going to feel like you are an employee and they're bossing you around versus you being the actual coach and coaching them on what to do.
And I'm going to pull into that, like being in that kind of boss mode, being the leader here. If you've got prep material that you told them they needed to go through before the call, and they get on the call and they haven't gone through it, guess what? I don't do the call. I don't do the call, because if I'm going to have a coach and mentor-mentee kind of relationship with this person ongoing, if they're going to join and work with us, they got to follow directions, right? They got to show me that they're going to be a good client for us. Plus, there's a huge level of posture. And like, I'm not going to just try to get everybody that I can to purchase, right? Like, I'm lucky that you're willing to talk to me about joining our program. It's like, no, our stuff's really awesome. It changes lives, and we can't serve everybody. So if you want to come join our team and work with us, you got to jump through some hoops and show us that you're worth it. And having that level of posture is super enticing. It's just like dating. What woman is enticed by a needy man? They're not. If people are just, we're kind of, it's not our nature to be enticed or want something when someone's super needy. So remember that it's the same idea with sales. If you're needy, they're going to feel it, and it is not appealing. You have to have that level of posture that, hey, this is the goods. We got the goods. I can help you, but you're in that leadership and that boss position and not the other way around. And a key to this, if you find that you are talking more than them, that's a problem. On your sales calls, your prospect should be doing the vast majority of the talking. You should be asking questions. Whoever's asking the questions is in the position of leadership. So if you get on the call and right away they're hitting you with a bunch of questions, they're taking leadership of that call. That's where you got to rein that back in. Say, okay, and then you set the stage. So this is how this call is going to work. I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions. I'm going to really understand where things are, what you need help with, blah, blah, blah. And you're going to take control of that. Because if they're asking the questions, they're in charge. You have to be that appealing leader that they actually want to follow. So watch yourself on that. If you are talking more than them, that's not a good sign.
And along the same lines, occasionally you'll get people who jump on a call and they're like, yeah, let's just, I already know how sales calls work. I get it. Just tell me what this is about and how much it costs. Sometimes you'll come across people like that try to take charge and try to like circumvent your process, and you can't let them do that.
And that, to me, if someone jumps in like that, it's going to be, I totally understand, but that's really not how we run our business, because we have to make sure that we vet you thoroughly to make sure you're going to be a good client for us. So if you want, we can continue with our normal process. If that's not appealing to you, that's totally fine. And we can end it here. That's posture, and that's taking that control back, because it's never going to go well if you bend to what they're trying to go down the road that they're leading you on there. Okay. So one thing that I think people don't necessarily understand as well is on a sales call, this should be the most hyper listening you've ever done. You're listening to everything. You're watching their posture. You're watching their facial expressions. You're listening to what they say. You're trying to understand exactly what they really mean, because it might not be the same as what they say. And you're also sort of reading their energy. So I kind of call this like hyperactive listening. Okay. So really honing in on them. So as a mom, right, who works from home, you can bet there are times when my kids come, we have a lanai, so they come outside my window here, and they're trying to talk to me, or they're making funny faces or doing goofy stuff when I'm on a sales call. They know that's how they get in trouble, because mom on a sales call must be zoned in. Now that someone is bleeding and there's an actual emergency, let mama work, because on a sales call, you have to pay attention, because there's going to be changes in people's energy. Even when they're saying the right thing, all of a sudden their energy is going to really back off, and they're going to withdraw from you. And you need to pick up on that and dive into what's going on, right? And you're not going to pay attention to that if you're like kind of halfway checking your email and your phone and talk to the kids and do what else during the sales call. So be like hyper focused on that person and understanding what they're saying, what they really mean, what they're feeling during the sales call process. So for an example, I was recently on a call with a gal, and she was saying the right things. When I asked her a question, she was saying that this made sense. She was saying this, I like this. She was giving all of the correct verbal cues that she was on board and she was enjoying what we were showing her. However, her energy started to shrink back. So instead of being leaning forward, smiling, having an outward positive energy, she was starting to kind of lean back in her chair. She was getting a little quieter. Her face was getting more muted, but she was still saying the right things. But her energy warned me there's something going on, right? And so because I kind of read what was going on with her in her body language, I dug in a little bit deeper to find what's happening. Well, turns out she really did like what we had going on, but it was so good, she was kind of scared to hear what the price was going to be. So, but you want to identify any potential problems, any hesitations or objections before you ever get to where you're actually discussing the cost, the investment of something. Because the investment amount doesn't matter at all if the solution isn't the correct solution to solve their problem. So in your sales call flow, you should be setting the stage. You should be asking questions to identify the problem that they're having. And then you're going to walk them through what their solution should be and how you can help them with that, what that solution looks like with you. And so once you've gone through that process and you've shown them your solution to help them solve their problem, now you can actually verify, like, does this solution even work? Because I'm not going to bother talking about money. No need to talk about investment, because it's going to not make sense. That's the second decision. The first decision, does this solve your problem? So I'm always going to do, some people call it a temperature check or a temp check on a call. Before you ever get to the actual pitch where you're dropping the price, you should do a temp check. If they're not sold, you got some work to do to get them where they're at a 10 out of 10, or they're excited. They said, yeah, no, this is a perfect fit. This is exactly what I need. You want to get them there before you ever drop the price. Because if you drop the price before you've tied them down that this is the correct solution, you've completely muddied the water. Because now they're having to decide, is this the right solution? And do I have the money for this? Is this a wise or a good investment, a value for that amount of money? Like, you're throwing way too many factors at them at once. And when people get overwhelmed, the answer is always no. So we want to sequentially take them through this process of showing them the solution to their specific problem, making sure that that solution is a yes, that makes total sense, they love it. And then, okay, that is asked and answered. And now here's the next, the next piece factor is bringing in the price.
And I remember when we started implementing this into our sales call process and how big of a game changer this was, just doing this temperature check or, test close before we get to the price. And I forget exactly how we frame the question, but it's something to the effect of, on a scale of 1 to 10, how, what is it?
Well, scale of 1 to 10. 1 being this is completely not helpful at all. 10 being this is exactly what you need to get to where you want to be. Where are you at?
Right. And I believe if it's anything less than a 10, then we go back and we dig for more information. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was talking to someone today who very thing, and everything was good cues, good everything, and they said a 7. It's like, a 7? Really? Now I'm a bit of a perfectionist. To me, a 7 means that there's some stuff that's missing. So what's going on? And then they say, well, actually, it's not that anything's missing. Everything looks good. I'm just nervous about the price. Oh, okay. So if we just set price aside, because price doesn't matter if this isn't the right solution for you, right? So set price aside. That doesn't matter right now. Just this solution, scale of 1 to 10. Where are you at? You're like, oh, no, 10, definitely. Okay, awesome. And then I can proceed with the call.
And a lot of times, like they'll say, yeah, it's 7 or a 6 or 8, and there'll be something less than a 10, and then you'll dig and you'll say, okay, so why not a 10? And maybe they'll say something like, well, this sounds really similar to this other program that I tried before, and that didn't work for me. So I'm not really sure that this is going to be everything that I need because it sounds very similar to something I tried before, right? They may have an objection like that. And then that's a point where we need to backtrack and dig into, okay, so what was in that program? How is it different? And then you need to make that explanation.
Exactly. And if you've done your job at the beginning of the call, that should already be handled. I know in my calls, I'm asking all of those questions. What's their past experiences? What were the previous solutions they've tried? And I've gotten them to identify, yeah, this is what they went through before, but here's where the gaps were. Hey, guess what? When I present our solution, I'm pointing out all the differences and how it fills all the gaps that they had previously. Everything I do on a sales call is overcoming objections before I ever get to the price drop. Like everything is framed and positioned to really guide them through this process and to help them acknowledge and understand how awesome it is and that this is the solution that they need. Now, here's one tip that a lot of people miss, especially if you're a newbie when it comes to selling. So a lot of people there are great at, nutrition coaching or whatever their thing is, but they're not salespeople, right? And so this is a common mistake, is they try to sell them when they get to the pitch of their call. So they've maybe asked a bunch of questions, understood that they'd be a good client, and now they're swapping around, offering their solution. They get to their pitch, and they're pitching them on everything. And they're selling all points and elements and features of the offer. When in reality, we want to keep it fairly simple, and you want to really focus in your pitch custom to what they've already mentioned that they need, that they've identified and spoken to the need, and that's what they're looking for. So that's what you lean into the pitch, because, we're going to sell this and we're going to give them this. That's just the reality. You're going to over deliver. You're going to give them a lot more, because even if it's, you're teaching this specific strategy, well, this specific strategy in a silo does nothing until you build out all these other pieces, and it's really going to be this big. But you want to simplify this. If people get a information overload, it's a no. That overwhelm, it's an absolute no. So just really simplify this. If they're talking about needing traffic, then that's what we're going to talk about, right? Like whatever they've identified and acknowledged through this call process that they need help with, that's the solution that we're solving. I'm not going to try to offer them the world, because that's going to overwhelm them.
Yeah, and the other part of that is that when you start focusing in on things that they don't really feel they need, or they feel that it might not even be relevant to them, then you may be opening yourself up to objections of, well, now I'm paying for things that I don't really need, right? Now I'm getting stuff and you may think that, oh, it's a bonus. The more things I pile onto this, the more valuable it's going to be. But if people don't see value in those things, if they don't think they need them, then it's not a positive, it's a negative. Now you're just piling things on that are irrelevant to them, that they feel like they're overpaying for.
Now, the final thing, and this is small but huge. It's an easy thing to fix, but it can make a massive difference. When you're on a sales call with someone and they say, yes, this sounds awesome, close the deal. Take their card, process their payment, and have them sign the agreement right there and then, right? They said yes. Great. Finish. I can't tell you how many coaches or people that we've talked to, and they're talking about their struggles with selling. And they said, well, such and such, they said yes. And then we got off the call. I emailed them the invoice and they never responded. I'm like, you got off the call after they said yes and you didn't take the payment? Really? That's a huge mistake. Like if they said yes, great. If you verbally take credit cards and process it yourself or you send them the link, I personally don't like to handle people's credit card numbers. Just I give them a link. I'm like, awesome. Okay, so I'm going to send you the link right now in chat. Go ahead, click on that link, and while you're filling that out, I'm going to get your account set up for you. So now I'm getting their agreement set up. I'm getting their, them access to the membership. I'm getting all that stuff ready while they're processing their own payment and they're in. And so that is an easy thing to change. It might, maybe you have a little bit of a mindset thing, a little uneasiness about it, but it's totally normal. If they said yes, that means they want to be sold. They want to join. They love what you have to offer. Okay, great. Let's get you started. Give them the link, have them start doing it live. They're with them, walk them through. And if that means that your calls are not half hour, but they're 45 minutes, make them 45 minutes. Your closing rate is going to be much higher and you're going to impact more people and help more people by doing so. So give yourself plenty of time. I will tell you, a quick sales call for me, I'm in and out in 45 minutes and it's bing, bang, boom, all good. Do I book myself back to back 45 minutes? Heck no. I give myself an extra 45 minutes after those 45 minutes for the weird situations that do come up at the end of a call where someone's trying to make their payment, but guess what? The credit card didn't let it through because it was too big at once, and now they have to call their credit card or they're moving stuff around to make the payment. I'm going to sit there patiently. I'm going to not have a call butting up against it, which is going to drive me nuts knowing that I'm going to be late for another call because I've spaced it out well so that I can give them my full attention and I can walk them through actually getting started.
Yeah. And I would say the other thing is that the other way that people kind of lose sales is when people can't join right that day, right? Like maybe it's, I just need to wait for my paycheck to come in. And, once that comes in, or, I've got another couple clients coming in and after, I get this payment, then I can join. And it should be, in another week or so. And what a lot of people will have the tendency to do is, okay, cool. So just get back to me whenever you're ready and then we can get you all set up. And then inevitably what happens is that they never get back to you.
And it's not necessarily that they consciously decide, I don't want to do this. It's usually life is busy. And they just keep, we're all just kind of going with the flow, living by the seat of our pants, right? And so they just it gets kind of pushed down in the priority pile and life moves on. And so if someone can't get started today, the best option is to take a deposit, hold their place. So you do want to get a deposit where you can, just a small percentage of the actual amount, just to get their foot in the door. And then they can join when they're ready. But you would still set the follow-up call while you're there talking. Say, okay, awesome. So, payday's next Friday. So, the following Monday, you'll be ready to go, right? Yep. Awesome. All right. Well, let me see what I have available in my calendar for next Monday. Because we're going to finish processing that payment. We're going to get them logged in, get them access to everything, during that call. So whether you're taking deposit or if it's just something that hey, I got to move this out a couple months. I love it. I just can't right now. XYZ. I just got a bill hit me from the hospital or like whatever. Totally understand. No problem. So how does, November 6th look, right? Or like whatever the date is that you're moving it out to. And so don't leave the call without something figured out for that next step.
In other words, don't leave it open-ended. Don't leave the ball in their court where it's totally their responsibility to get back to you.
Absolutely. And I love our sales system that we use. We use ConvertPoint, and I just schedule text messages and emails right as I get off that call. So if I want to keep them warm and I know we're not going to meet for a month and they want to get started in a month, right as soon as I close that sales call down, I could write out an email checking in on them or a text message, and I could just schedule it while it's top of mind and the conversation is fresh. And then it goes out in a couple weeks or whenever I schedule it for. So myself and our team, we've got a great closing rate. We do really well with sales, but a lot of that has to do with the systems that we have not just being good at closing and selling, but the systems and processes we have in place ahead of time. And honestly, by the time people get on the call with me, they're pre-sold, because that's what all of our marketing has done up till then. All of the systems and automations have done the selling for us. And now we're just kind of going through, making sure it's a good fit and going over the logistics and make sure they can afford it. So if that's something that you don't have down well, if your systems are not doing the selling for you and you're having to hustle and try to book these calls and hard sell them the whole thing on the call, that's something that can be improved. And that's something that we can actually help you improve. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll have the link to book a call with us in the show notes and description. And you can kind of go through our process. So you'll see it firsthand, and then we'll actually see if this makes sense for you and helping you to build your business. So check that out if that makes sense for you, and we'll see you next time. You've been listening to the Digital Trailblazer podcast. For show notes and information about today's guest, head to digitaltrailblazer.com. Now, if you love this episode, if you got some value, make sure you leave us a review and subscribe. And be sure to share this episode with anyone you know who could use help to build their business. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.